Good morning, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okun, and thank you everyone who have been helping me, subscribing to my channel and sharing with family and friends and colleagues, and I enjoying watching the video. And continue watching the video. If this is your first time coming here, please help to subscribe and then watch the video. Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I am talking about the cost of living crisis and help given in the United Kingdom. If you live in the United Kingdom or if you live elsewhere, and you pay attention to government website online. A lot of many things are now happening online, and the best way to look for information to do things are actually online. You watch this video or rate with the other videos I have recorded about this topic because they are all related. We are talking about universal credit. Universal credit is a form of money given in the United Kingdom to help people who need it, who are actually eligible for getting it. And so we are going to go straight into looking at the kind of help if you live in the United Kingdom, in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. You can visit the government website or the sites, including one of citizen advice or the other forms of sources to get advice. And if you watch the rest of the video and you watch this video as well, you will discover that help is available, but the process of getting help is getting more and more complicated, and you need professional support. If you can do it yourself, fine. And with universal credit, you need to have access to computer and the internet, and there are other requirements. And universal credit has replaced other benefits. For most people, housing benefit, I already mentioned this yesterday, and I'm repeating this today. And things like income support, income related employment support allowance. These are all different types of benefit, which is now under universal credit. And there is something called income-based job seekers allowance, and child tax credit, working tax credit. And all these are actually different types of benefits. And child tax credit, working tax credit. And you can also check if you can get universal credit, and if you're not working or if you're low income, and check if you're eligible for universal credit. I already mentioned this at length yesterday. Today I'm going to do a summary because yesterday already, in the other videos I've been talking about it already. You might also be able to, if you are low, if you are not working, or you are low, you are on low income, then these are actually factors you can look at to see if you're eligible for universal credit. Eligibility means you are actually allowed to get such a benefit. So if you are actually in the old benefits, which is called legacy benefits, then you need to know the difference between universal credit and legacy benefits. So if you're getting legacy benefit, you are going to stay on legacy benefit until you are actually moved out of universal legacy benefit into universal credit. And if that happens, then you need to know the difference. You, for example, you actually get universal credit every month, and that's the difference. Instead of getting it maybe fortnightly, every 2 months, every 2 weeks, or every week, you get it every month. Those are some of the differences. And with universal credit, you can also get universal credit if you are working, and also if you are not working. And you get a single payment normally each month, rather than weekly or fortnightly. And so if you're getting legacy benefit, you normally get legacy benefit like job seekers allowance or some of the other benefits. If you watch this video, watch it with the rest of the video, because there is a continuation. If you because I won't be really uh, talking very much, because I already talked a lot in the other videos about related issues, because I'll be now concentrating on the kind of help which is available. And so uh, the element, there's something called the housing element, which is replacing housing benefit. If you live in the UK, you know that if you need help with paying rent and you're low income, and you are in need of benefits to help you pay for your rent, and which is what one of the benefits being provided by the government. Because if you remember what I said in the other video, I said the cost of living as a crisis is related to income, and benefit is actually a fundamental source of income. Universal credit is the primary source of benefit, and the main source of benefit income in the United Kingdom is employment and self-employment for people who are actually poor, the lower and the middle classes of workers, either people working as employee or self-employed. These are actually small individuals in terms of income. They're more susceptible to the problem of the cost of living crisis, and there are also entrepreneurs, which are actually bigger organizations or individuals who are actually multimillionaires, and they are also investors as shareholders or as other forms of operators. We already discussed this in fair details in the other videos, so we are now going to touch on such things just so that what we are trying to talk about make sense, in case some people only join today, because we are on social media, so things move very quickly. And so the housing benefit used to pay for housing, and there's something else also called council tax reduction, which is actually also a benefit paid by the government to pay something called council tax. If you live in the UK, you know about council tax. It's a tax on, I think, property. I've never heard council tax paid on anything else. If you live in a house, you pay council tax, which is actually mandatory. If you don't pay council tax for a good reason, you might go to prison. And these are actually priority bills. And if you don't pay other things, also you may get into trouble, like rent. So we'll talk about rent. If you need help with rent because you're on low income, or you are actually maybe unemployed, or you're getting less money, maybe you're working part-time, or maybe you work in a way, maybe your hours keep fluctuating, and your earning keeps fluctuating because you're self-employed, or for one reason or another, or maybe you're sick for one reason or another, you need to apply actually for if you want housing benefit, you need to pay for it. But there's a caveat in terms of housing benefit. If you are in a temporary accommodation from the council, from the local authorities or housing association, if you are actually on a temporary accommodation on social housing, then you still get housing benefit from the local authorities. But if you are in a permanent accommodation of any sort, or a temporary accommodation with private landlord, you get mainly universal credit. It's called housing element, and also working tax credit has now changed from working tax credit to working elements within the universal credit. Child tax credit has also changed now. They call it housing element. These are actually some of the information you you do well to know, especially now with the cost of living crisis. These information, these exercises actually to provide information in terms of the cost of living crisis, because the cost of living crisis is here to stay because it relates to income mainly. If people cannot access energy or food, and I've already spoken somewhere else, if you watch other videos in terms of help being provided by the energy companies and water companies if you're in debt with them. Also, some things called hardship payment, which you get if you're in debt with rent arrears or council tax arrears, discretionary housing payment and hardship payment from the local authorities. They are very different sources of help which is available, which are actually complex, which I'll be going through in this program. So, as I said, if you are actually getting universal credit, and then you get it depending on your circumstance, and if you are actually how universal credit is actually, how it operates, is important for you to know how it works, how universal credit actually functions in practice. So, like I said, you get one payment monthly to cover for your living costs. And living costs, including things like buying food, fuel, transport, and things like that. Your normal living costs. So that's what you get universal credit for. So you can claim it as a single person, or you can claim it as a couple, and you get one payment between the two of you as couples. Yeah, you don't get it separately. These are some of the rules of universal credit. These are some of the changes they have made on benefit. You don't get it separately. If you are actually with you and your partner, you get one payment, and you are assessed together. But that also means your income and the income of your partner is taken into account. If your partner works and what they earn is actually less than what the law would recommend, then you, as a couple, you will still get benefit on the account of the partner who doesn't work. And if your partner's earning is actually a lot, then you won't get universal credit because it's means tested. Means testing means you can afford something or you cannot afford something within the law, as the law would recommend. So with universal credit in the United Kingdom, which is actually England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, in the United Kingdom, if you're getting universal credit, which is where you get universal credit, you only get universal credit in the United Kingdom, you can get it as a standard allowance. There are different elements. There is a standard allowance you get, but also there are other elements which actually relate to your circumstance. And depending on whether or not you actually are looking after one or more children, then you probably get child element. Like I said, if you are actually paying for childcare, probably you get support with childcare costs. And also, if you are actually paying for housing costs, then you get the housing element instead of a housing benefit. If you have a medical condition, you're disabled or have a health condition, then you get the health element. There's something called limited capability for work or limited capability for work-related activity. I explained this in the other videos, but I will explain it again going forward. This is actually the health element of universal credit. So if you care for a disabled person or you have a disabled child, then you can get maybe carer's allowance, which is actually something I will also be talking about going forward. So you can actually check on the government website gov.uk to try to find out how much you might be getting in terms of universal credit. Now, if you are paying rent, if you are liable to pay rent, because you don't really get benefit just because there is benefit, you need to be paying rent somewhere. Then you can actually ask for help with rent, the cost of rent. And if you're paying for rent, whether it is social housing is what the government gives as in housing, but also there could be private housing which you rent from the market as a private property. You can actually be in a situation like that. And if this happens, then you apply for universal credit, the housing element. Like I said, if you get it, it's necessary for you to take the money from your universal credit because they give one payment. They're not going to split them. If you are actually entitled to the different elements of universal credit, all of them are paid as a lump sum. And it's your responsibility now to split it up in terms of the housing, to pay the housing costs. Then you pay it to your landlord. You take it from your universal credit and pay your landlord. But if you are actually struggling with money, some people actually struggle with money, especially now with universal credit. I know with cost of living crisis, people struggle financially. Sometimes they are in debt. Sometimes they're in rent arrears. Rent arrears is also a part of a type of debt, but this is specifically a debt relating to the cost of housing, and also council tax arrears, also, and also gas and electricity debt and water debt. If you are actually, these are the common ones, it can be credit card or some other form of debt, or you are actually buying maybe a car on car finance. This is type of debts. Or if you are struggling, it's advisable because you're on low income. You can arrange with the DWP, Department for Work and Pension, who give the benefit to pay directly to your landlord, because rent is a priority priority bill. If you're in rent arrears, then the debt is actually priority debt. So, like I said, if you are working, then you are paid some money, and you need to be aware that you can still get universal credit, you can still get benefit as universal credit. And this can be paid to you, and depending on how much you earn from your work, if you're working part-time, like I tried to explain earlier. So this is going to affect the amount of money you get in benefit. And because if you earn more money than the government says you should get, then the work you do and what you earn actually from your work will actually impact on your benefit, and you're going to get less benefit or more benefit depending on the amount of money you get, or whether you don't get anything at all. Because your income will have reduced in relation to what the law says you need to get benefit or not to get benefit. This is how the situation is. This applies if you are self-employed, because it has to do with income from employment or from self-employment. So if you are actually self-employed, there is something called the income minimum floor. This is what the DWP expect you to get each month. That they will calculate the amount of your benefit based on what they expect you as somebody who is self-employed to get each month. Is called minimum income floor. I will be talking about this going forward, and so you find out how minimum income floor works and if it applies to you. Normally, you need to check these things with other independently when you're doing research, or talking to somebody who know about it, or talking to a professional such as an advisor, which is you can talk to an advisor at the DWP, and you can also talk to an independent advisor, say from Citizen Advice or some other organization, if you watch the rest of the video, then you will find that I've already discussed some of this in fair details there. Like I've already said in the other video and also in the opening of this video, I've said you can actually claim other benefits as well as claiming universal credit. For example, I've already mentioned council tax reduction, which you can actually, when you are claiming universal credit, you can also claim a council tax reduction. Although council tax reduction is paid by the local authority and a universal credit is paid by the DWP, the Department for Work and Pension, which is a civil service branch of the department, and you in the process of applying for universal credit, which you do with the DWP, Department for Work and Pension, you also apply for council tax reduction, which is a benefit to help you with paying council tax. Sometimes they pay the full amount, but in most cases they don't pay the full amount. But if you're in debt with council tax reduction, which is council tax arrears, if you're in arrears with council tax reduction, with council tax, we are liable, because if you're liable to pay tax, then if you don't pay, you begin to fall into debt with that situation. Then you can always claim something called a hardship fund, which is a grant to help you with cope with the rent situation, with council tax debt. Normally, if you have other benefit, you're claiming benefit like universal credit, is a passport benefit to show to the authorities that you are actually on low income, because all these are means tested. Now, if you claim council tax reduction, it's not going to affect your universal credit. The thing about universal credit is actually means tested. Other benefit you might claim is actually child benefit if you have a child. It also it doesn't affect your universal credit, because they are not means tested. These benefits, other benefits, are not means tested. Maybe carer's allowance, if you claim carer's allowance, because it is means tested. It might not be means tested, but somehow carer's allowance is taken into account the level. It might affect your universal credit. Now, if you are actually sick, you can claim something called personal independence payment. Personal independence payment is a sickness benefit also. Does not affect the level of your universal credit. It does not affect how much universal credit you get. You should not confuse personal independence payment with limited capabilities for work, because limited capability for work is called sickness element of the universal credit. It is part of means tested income. You only get it if you are actually getting universal credit as a sick person. You get it in addition to personal independence payment if you are actually an adult between 16 to if you're 16 years and older, let's say if you are 18 years, between 18 years and under pension age, you can apply for personal independence payment. But if you are 16 and 17 and you're not in full-time education, you are sick, you can also apply for, your parents can apply for, on your behalf, can apply for a personal independence payment also. But if you're actually in full-time education or some other government-sponsored full-time program of training or something similar, then you are still treated as if you're a child. You also get child benefit between 16 and 17 years. And if that is the case, then you apply for something called disability living allowance, DLA, which is the same with personal independence, otherwise known as PIP. If you get these benefits, it means you're sick, and then you're happy to go. And if you are actually below, if you're a pensioner, then and you're sick, you are actually maybe a pensioner and you're sick, then you can actually claim attendant allowance. but you will not be able to get universal credit because you will be getting pension. And I've already mentioned pension in the other information. You are looking at benefit relating to somebody who is the pension age. You get state pension if you have worked for 35 years in the United Kingdom. You get the full amount if you have worked for 35 years, paying national insurance contribution in the United Kingdom. If you work less than 35 years, then you get a certain amount. They will be calculated for you using a formula, and then you need to check with the authorities, or you check online, or you check the calculator to see how much you might get your state pension. And whatever is the shortfall you get with the state pension, you get something like a pension credit allowance, or whatever you call it. And pension credit, the guarantee element of pension credit, which is actually, pension credit is actually means tested, but state pension is not means tested, which means means testing with state pension is actually, it means if you get state pension, you can actually work. It doesn't matter how much you earn with work, you still get your state pension in full. It doesn't affect it. It doesn't reduce because your income is high. If you have savings, you still get state pension anyway. But with universal credit comparatively, and with pension credit is like a universal credit, means tested. And also housing benefit is also means tested. If you're on pension, you actually get housing benefit instead of universal credit. Housing element, you go back to housing benefit. And what I don't know is if it is means tested to get housing benefit, but in theory it probably shouldn't, but I think it is, because housing benefit is means tested. Generally, I don't know for pensioners, but I will check. If you're interested, then I will let you know. If you are a pensioner who is wondering whether you're getting the right amount of benefit, housing benefit, because sometimes people actually don't know. If you live in, especially if you live, this is actually specifically if you live in the UK. But you can also watch this video if you don't live in the UK, because it's similar to what might be happening in Europe, in America, or Asia, and but not in Africa, because in Africa there's no universal welfare system like you have in the developed world. That is a separate discussion. I've actually touched on that in the other video. And eventually, if somebody is watching who is from Africa, if you need us to discuss that, then we will probably talk about it. But it's a case of now looking at the policy and political dimension of the issue, other than in terms of policy and also the implementing of the policy, which is what I am now talking about. I'll talk about policy in the UK and how it is implemented. I'm not now talking about politics. I want to talk about policy, which is actually existing as a reality, which people will be aware, if you're in the United Kingdom, to comply with. Because in Africa, then I may talk about politics, which we involve. You're going to your MP to talk to your MP, to talk to the government to change policy on benefit, on welfare benefit in Africa generally. Check in your country within your government website, or talk to your MP, or if they are advisors, talk to your advisors, especially if you're in Africa. Find out if there is a welfare benefit in your country, because I cannot assume that in Africa generally. I know generally there are some form of welfare system, maybe to do with education and healthcare and pension also, but the way it is actually approached is slightly different, probably actually significantly different from what happened in Europe and the rest of the world. And so going back to universal credit, we talk about sickness with children. It's something called DLA, there's something called PIP. You can claim that if you're a sick person and it doesn't affect your benefit. And now if you are claiming universal credit, you can also claim some other benefits, such as job seekers allowance. And there are two types of job seekers allowance. There is a type which is now being replaced by universal credit, like I said previously, and there is income-based job seekers allowance, which is now being replaced by universal credit. Is a legacy benefit. Legacy, which means it's an old benefit. Um, and then there's a new style job seekers allowance now, which is contribution based. Contribution means you are paid enough national insurance contribution to get benefit. And this is an option you can apply if you are unemployed, and because it's income based also. If you are unemployed, you can check if you can claim contribution based job seekers allowance, JSA, also called new style. It's called new style job seekers allowance. And you if you can't work because of illness or disability, or you can also check if you can claim contribution-based employment and support allowance. Employment support allowance is similar to what we now call the sickness elements, which is also means tested. Employment support allowance is for sickness. If you got a job seekers allowance in the past, you get the full benefit, but you don't get job seekers allowance. But if you get employment and support allowance, which is actually the same with job seekers allowance, but job seekers allowance in the past, in the legacy context, job seekers allowance is if you are not sick. It means tested is now replaced by universal credit. Employment and support allowance is actually, if you're a sick person, is exactly the same with job seekers allowance, but the one is for when you are not sick, the other is for when you are sick. They are both means tested. Today, employment support allowance has been replaced by the sickness elements of universal credit, which is something called limited capability for work related activity. Which is what you're most likely to get the element, the sickness element equivalence. But there's another one which is actually a limited capability for work, which means you are not that sick. You are not very sick, which means you might get some benefit, but most likely you won't get it. But you can be supported in other ways to prepare for work, and you will be getting normal universal credit as a standard allowance, like I explained previously. So you can check for this kind of situations, and this is a case of claiming. Now, if you're getting a new style job seekers allowance, like I said, your universal credit might be reduced because these are means tested benefits. Because if your income goes up in one way or the other, it reduces your universal credit. This is the main benefit. You can actually claim a new style job seekers allowance or employment support allowance, either if you are getting either being sick or being normal. It may reduce the level of universal credit you get, but it's normally advisable to claim both universal credit and new style job seekers allowance, because universal credit is paid monthly. They are separate benefits. You'll get both separately. And if while you are waiting for 1 month for universal credit, you will only be waiting for 2 weeks for a new style job seekers allowance and new style employment support allowance. And or as well, and if you get, for some reason, if your universal credit is actually reduced, or if it is actually stopped, because for one reason or another you stop getting universal credit, you can still get your new style job seekers allowance, because there are two different benefits. This scenario is normally important to check and see if you can get more help. So normally, if you start getting new style job seekers allowance, then you can also qualify to get class 1 national insurance credit, which actually relate to when you probably are claiming another benefit. And because you have contributed somehow, it will help you to claim sickness benefit, new style benefit, because you are already getting you will have probably got class 1 national insurance contribution. It's because there are different types of national insurance credits. These credits actually relate to whether you can apply for certain benefits in the future. And so universal credit actually gets, if you're claiming universal credit, you get something like class 3 credit, which is the opposite of class 1 national insurance credit. Now, if you decide to claim new style job seekers allowance or the other benefit, you can do this online. It's free. You only pay for your internet if you are on contract or whatever. But to actually apply is free online. And normally when you claim benefit, it's good to take a photo shot or a screenshot of the message which says your claim has been sent. That's the evidence to prove that you actually claim. Sometimes your claim may be delayed or maybe lost or maybe deleted by mistake. If you have evidence, you can actually prove this with the Department of Work and Pension. And then you will need the screenshot of your claim, and you can also apply by phoning the Job Center Plus claim lines. There's something called claim line at Job Center Plus, which is part of the government facilities to help you actually phone them to get to make a claim on the telephone by phone. And there's a number which you can actually get from gov.uk, which is actually Job Center Plus claim lines. I use claim line for claiming benefit. When you're making phone calls, check the times and days, normally Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And calls are free from mobiles and landlines. You can make free phones. But like I said, your phones, if it is free, then it is free. But if you pay for your phone, then you already pay for your phone. You don't pay extra. That's what it means. When they say it is free, that's what they're talking about. You're not going to pay extra. Now, if you are actually claiming job seekers allowance, new style job seekers allowance or employment support allowance, actually, if you are actually claiming new style employment support allowance, or if you're applying online, you can always apply for yourself. But if you're applying for someone else, then you have to contact the DWP on the phone, because you cannot actually apply for, if you're applying for someone else, you cannot apply online. You need to use the phone. And also, these are some of the changes which are actually happen. And you also cannot, because normally with universal credit, you have an online account. In the past, you were allowed to apply for employment support allowance on your universal credit online account. They have now stopped that. You have to use separate means for the separate benefit. And if you watch the rest of my video on this, I've actually explained to you how complex the benefit system and processes are. So, because the process is a bit complicated, it's a lot complicated if you are claiming for the sickness component of this benefit. So, it's worth actually to talk to an advisor, which are actually independent, or an advisor at the DWP, because there are advisors at the DWP, Department of Health and Department of Work and Pension. But if you go say to citizen advice, they are independent, and characteristically their advice is confidential and free. and they give free legal advice, and they are independent, and it's good to use them. And we're going to look at how universal credit is paid, and you can also check your eligibility for universal credit, like I said previously. Now, like I said previously in the opening and also in the other videos, I said universal credit are actually paid monthly, and they are paid as a single payment, whether there are different elements. They are all paid as a single payment, and they are paid directly into your bank account. So you need to have a bank account. If you don't, then you need to find out how to open one, and the kind of account you can pay into a bank account. You can building society and credit union or things like that. But sometimes people don't have a bank account. But if you don't have a bank account, then you will need to open one, and you can actually find out how to do that. Normally, get help whenever you can, as much as you can, especially from advisors. And if you have tried to open a bank account and your application for banking for bank account is refused, then you will need to use a payment exception service, something called payment exception service, which is something you can also ask an advisor, or actually you will need to explain why you can't open a bank account. And if you need more advice on opening a bank account, then you can speak to advisors, as I said. So you can also find out information on the government website with regard to payment exception services, and find out how it works. And you can also, if you need help to open a bank account, you can always find information from one place or another, and how to do it. And there are different approaches to payment for individuals, single people, and also as couples, like I said previously. So you normally people make joint claim as a couple, and the will get one payment between the two of them. I've already mentioned this previously. So you should tell the Job Center. The Job Center is an organization which is actually within the DWP. They deal with benefit. They're called Job Center Plus. If you live in the UK, you will know this, but I can't take it for granted, because a lot of the time people are confused about where services are operational from, because they are, the services are there, but they're scattered all over the place. Sometimes people are confused. Should I go to the council? Should I go to my MP? Should I go to citizen advice to get benefit? Or should I go to a private company? Because, a lot of things are mixed up. So normally, go online. The best place to go is online. Like I said, I've said it several times. And it will help in one way or the other. So make sure you always maintain a line of communication with the Job Center. And if you want your payment to go to one account, to one of you, or to be split between you, if you want actually the benefit to pay to your account separately, or into one account as couples, then you need to explain that to the DWP. Sometimes people want their benefit to be paid separately, or in the same bank account for both of the couple. Explain to the DWP and let them know. The Job Center doesn't have to agree to this. Normally, the rule is they pay you as couples in one way. But if there is a specific problem, probably the other person probably is not careful with the money. If there is an issue, you need to raise it with the DWP. If your peers, there is some problem, maybe you can talk to an advisor so that they can maybe negotiate on your behalf. So normally, if you ask the DWP to split your payment, it depends on your personal circumstances. normally, because the general rule is they pay in one place. So you need to explain if you think there is a situation, and if it is in your interest. For example, if your partner has trouble managing money, like I said, and it might cause a financial problem for the family. That's one of the things the DW can look at. And if or also it is in the interest of a child which you are responsible for, then you can discuss that with the DWP. But also, if you get an amount in your universal credit because you care for a severely disabled person, and it's helpful for them to get paid in this way. So if you're actually caring for somebody who is severely disabled, and the money is paid to your bank account, that under this circumstance, the DWP might consider paying it, separating payment if you are coupled. So the way universal credit is paid, I already explained it to you, that it takes, the first payment takes 5 weeks. So you might not have enough money, in which case you can get actually advance payment. You can get advance payment of universal credit, but you will have to pay this back because it is a loan. It's not a grant. So what you can negotiate with the DWP how to repay it. You will have to repay it. So we have discussed this in the other videos. I'm just trying to look at it now more specifically. And yep. And also, when you are paid in a certain month, the first payment on a specific month, subsequent payment will also be on the same date. Actually, you're going to be changing it. So you expect your payment, if you get it on Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, consistently every month you get it the same date. And normally, like I said previously, if you're self-employed, then there is something called minimum income floor, which is what the DW expect you to get per month. So you can use their budgeting calculator to help you determine the level of your income, because normally you need to budget so that your money lasts from 1 month to the next, because normally you need to report change of circumstance. Also, you need to report how much you earn to the DWP every month. So that is something you need to know, really, if you are faced with, because you see the whole process. What I'm talking about is related to people who are on low income, who need extra help from benefit, and this is related to the cost of living crisis, especially in the cost of living crisis. You in terms of maximizing your income, even if most people don't like to claim benefit, but normally when there is hardship, people every little help, you can get benefit from here and there, you can get help from here and there. And so it is actually important that people pay attention to their income. Otherwise, you will be destitute. It actually, things can get out of control. Also, if you're claiming universal credit, pay attention to something called assessment period. Assessment period is actually when the first day you claim universal credit, and you will count from that period 1 month, and then that is like assessment period. And so you have to pay attention, unless you're under managed migration. Its assessment period start on the day of the month you first claim universal credit. And if you, for example, if you claim on the 1st, and if you on the 1st of March or May or something, you just have to be within 4 weeks. You count 4 weeks from if you claim from the start of the month, and you have to count for the the end of the month. And if you claim maybe on the 1st, then that is the assessment period is actually between the 1st of March and the end of March. Also, that is actually the assessment period. So it's a bit complicated, but that is something you can pay attention to. And so, in terms of assessment period, while you are trying to claim universal credit, if you leave work, say today, and normally you have 1 month's payment pending, you expect your employer to pay you the following month. If you claim universal credit immediately, like today, the DWP is going to treat you as if you are going to be paid the following months. So you may not even, you will claim universal credit, but you might not be paid actually universal credit for the months following, because the DWP will conclude that the following month you will be having money. So in a sense, I mean, if you, especially if you say you are not, you leave work maybe on the 15th or on the 20th, the best thing is to wait until the end of the month, because if you claim universal credit straight away, you're not going to be paid that month, because the DW will say your employer is going to pay you that month, or even next month. So you need to wait until the end of the month. Then when you are already paid, and then you now claim from the following months, because the DWP will know that you're not going to get any money. Then your universal credit is going to be calculated from the following months within the assessment period. Now, also, there is something called managed migration. Managed migration means you are being transferred from a legacy benefit into universal credit. If you are getting a job seekers allowance, for example, which is a legacy benefit, the same with universal credit, except it is treated as if it is a different benefit, and it is in terms of guidelines and policies. It's called legacy benefit because it's an old benefit. You are being migrated from an old to new benefit. The old benefit, for example, would be job seekers allowance. The new benefit will be universal credit. The process of the DWP actually asking you to leave the old benefit and go and claim the new benefit, which is universal credit. And it's called managed migration, which is actually the DWP is managing the process. They are going to write a letter to you, a notice to say your old benefit is ending, so you need to apply within a deadline of 1 month. You need to apply for the new universal credit. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on benefit anyway. You're not going to pay. They're not going to pay you once the deadline passes and you haven't claimed. You're going to lose your benefit. So normally, it's the best way. Once the deadline is provided, the best way is to play. In my opinion, you apply as much as possible, as soon as possible. So the rules might be slightly different if you have actually the assessment period is actually managed in a certain way. So if you are actually claiming universal credit before your deadline day, if your deadline day is maybe 1 month or 3 days, then your first assessment period is the same as the normal universal credit, as I have actually explained previously. But if you claim between your deadline day and the final deadline, if you claim late, in other words, if you delay and then you're in the middle of the deadline and when the assessment period starts, then the situation changes in such a way that the first assessment period will start on the deadline day. If you're going to, if the deadline is on the 30th, then if you actually claim on the 15th, then your assessment day will start on the end of your deadline, which is actually the 30th, which is a bit complicated. Regardless where you have claimed nearer to the end of the deadline. So these in practice may mean that you can get your first payment in less than 5 weeks, but in my opinion, in my guesswork, I think you're going to get less benefit. You're going to lose benefit. And normally, your deadline, if you're actually under pressure for one reason, it can be extended. The deadline can be extended. But what I don't know, what the information doesn't say, whether your benefit will also continue, the old legacy benefit. If it continues, then that is fine. If it doesn't continue, then you're going to lose benefit unless you speak to the DWP and explain to them why you're delaying moving from the old benefit to the next. But in practice, it's not to pay you some money because they don't necessarily extend your deadline because you have to have a good reason for not really moving, because moving is mandatory. You don't have a choice. Well, it's not necessarily mandatory. It only means that if you don't move, you are not going to have benefit. If you need benefit, then you are supposed to move. That's what I'm trying to. I hope it's clear. If you ask for an extension, it's going to be 1 month, and that will be the final deadline. That it is unlikely they are going to agree to extend the deadline. So, like I also said about universal credit, is that you can get it to pay your rent if you are eligible for universal credit. It's replacing something called housing benefit, which is also a legacy benefit. That will stop, and you'll get housing element of universal credit, which is replacing housing benefit. Now, this only applies if you're renting, but if you're on a mortgage, you don't get paid anything. If you are on mortgage, you don't get housing benefit or universal credit to pay for your mortgage. But you might be able to get something called support for mortgage interest. SMI is a loan which might mean you have to pay it back if you are. I don't know how it works, but that is what the information says. So you can, this can help pay for the interest on your mortgage or home loan. So you have to really find out if you can get that. It will help if you negotiate with your lender, with your mortgage company, if you are on a mortgage. So actually, if you are actually on a mortgage, you're going to be in serious trouble if you lose your job. You might lose your home altogether anyway, because the government does not help to pay your mortgage. That's not paid. Mortgage is a credit you get to buy your home. You buy when you're buying your home. You're borrowing a loan to borrow to pay for to buy your house. It's called mortgage, which the DWP doesn't actually help you with. And if you're already on housing benefit when you apply for universal credit, you can still get housing benefit for 2 weeks after you submit your claim for universal credit. But they will give you this money for free for 2 weeks when you're starting the process of moving from universal credit to housing from job seekers allowance or some other benefit, income support, for example. You're moving from it to universal credit. So they allow you to get housing benefit for 2 weeks, which you don't pay back, which is fair. And then this actually is called, this housing benefit which is paid is called transitional payment, which is actually a name they've given to transitional payment, which you get the extra payment. Housing benefit which is called housing benefit transitional payment or housing benefit run-on. It's a run-on for 2 weeks during the process. So you can find out more on run-on of universal or housing benefit on gov.uk. Some of the situations you get, the DWP guidance says the run-on should be based on the maximum award of housing benefit, which means they might pay the full rent even if you are actually getting less. So if you are getting less housing benefit, they probably pay the full rent for you. Yeah. So actually, you can find out information from the advisor. You can find information from from your advisors, the DWP, or from somewhere else. Now, in case the benefit relays for your housing, you begin to fall into debt, rent arrears, or mortgage arrears. The best option when you're in debt is to talk to the creditor, to your landlord, or to your mortgage lender. Explain to them the DWP is processing your benefits. They will probably agree. If they don't, then you can speak to an independent advisor. And the situation with debt is to get that advice and get as much support as you can. But in life, there tend to be no guarantee for anything. Now, if you're in a situation with benefit and your data, and you try to negotiate with your data creditor, with your creditor, actually, the person who giving you credit, your creditor, you are the data because you're in debt. You borrowed money from them. And if you are actually in the situation, you negotiate. They might actually agree to wait for the money, for the payments. If they actually if actually you are in debt or you're behind with your rent payments, you can ask for an alternative payment alternative payment arrangement, which means you will get paid in a different way than from what you usually. I mean, if you get paid in a normal way, they're going to change the way they want to pay because you're in a different situation. Maybe they will pay directly, or they pay late, or they pay early, or maybe they pay instead of paying 4 weekly, you can pay maybe 2 weekly. Find out about you can find out about a situation involving debt, and if you're having a problem with the housing costs. And also, you might be struggling with money generally, as we said earlier. Struggling with money means you struggle to manage your income. You fall into debt. You cannot budget properly, and so you can actually do certain things to save money. You can try and save money on your living costs, which is easy said than done. But you can do it, and you can actually maximize the income in one way or the other. That's what the kind of guidance you might get in terms of help from the government in terms of advice. And if you find it hard to pay your bills, then you can get help as well. You can find out how to get help with your bills. And these are always from advisors, independent advisor online or whatever. So your universal credit can be updated if you applied for it. And if you apply for universal credit, payment to cover up to 1 month before you started your claim. This is called backdating. So your claim can be backdated by 1 month. So if you move universal credit from other benefit because you got a migration notice from the DWP, you might backdate your payments automatically. And that's what they can do. So DWP will usually backdate your payment if your old benefits stopped before your universal credit started. Like I said previously, some of the situation you might actually face. A migration notice is a letter from the DWP which says you need to move from universal credit by a certain date, which I already explained in this video. The date is 3 months after they sent the letter, so the deadline is always 3 months, which is enough for you to. Already, actually, if you watch the other videos, I've already actually gone through this information and actually discussed it there. So you will need to ask for the backdating. You ask the DWP to backdate your benefit, but you can do that if you haven't had a migration notice from the DWP, or if you have had a migration notice, but you claim more than a month after the deadline if you're late, or backdating undermanaged migration. Also, you can actually backdate undermanaged migration, which is going to be automatic. And if you do that, whether it's worth applying for backdating depends on when you claim universal credit. You can start by checking deadline day. The deadline on in your migration notice, unless the DWP agree to extend it the final date a month after deadline day. If the DWP extend your deadline day, then you will send them a letter confirming the new date. They will send you a letter confirming the new date. So if the DWP extend your deadline day, then they will send you a letter confirming the new date. So this is some of the information which actually provided in terms of what happens with the benefit system. And I'm going to stop this process here and then continue the next time, because there are actually a lot of information, and this relates to the cost of living crisis, and this can help the viewer, or you can add a family member or a friend, or just an exercise to try and understand the situation involving benefit system. The reason I'm actually sharing this with viewers is so that people living in the UK or outside the UK can understand how the system works, because in my opinion it's quite complex. And if you've been with me through, then I'm so happy that you've been through it, through the process with me, and subscribe to my channel, and click the notification bell, and share with family and friends. Click like, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the benefit system in the UK, regardless where you live. Let me know if it is similar to what happens in your country. And we are actually a small channel, we are growing, and I will be going through this information. I will also be talking about other things on this channel, or doing other things, but for now I'm actually going through this because I'm interested in talking about the cost of living crisis, which is income related. It's also to do with poverty. If you watch the later video, I've spoken actually broadly. I've got so many videos. You can actually go onto my channel and watch as much as you like. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye bye.